Well, hey, folks, and welcome back to Maine Fish and Wildlife. We're into a new month here. We're into October, which means it's time to do a little more reading and reflection from Aldo Leopold's A Sand County Almanac. And I'm not going to lie, this is maybe one of my favorite short stories from this book. And I think I have a lot of personal connection with it for a variety of reasons. And if you take a walk in the Maine woods this time of year after reading this story, you can't help but notice the red lanterns and start to think about Leopold's words. So hopefully you'll take as much meaning from this story as I do, and it's a really fun one to read. So remember, with our reading and reflection here, I'm hoping that by now you've found the assignment, which is on my screen. You found that in Google Classroom, and you've uploaded it to Notability to work on. And maybe you've even uploaded the reading there, that PDF file of the actual reading. You've uploaded that to another app such as Books or something along those lines. So that way you can go back and take a look and find answers if you need to. I've got mine uploaded to Books here, and you can just feel free to follow along with me as I read. I'm going to zoom in here nice so we can see what we're reading. And again, we're reading this short story called Red Lanterns from Aldo Leopold's A Sand County Almanac, and this is from the October section of the book. So let's jump right in. We'll read, we'll talk about some of the things that are coming up here as we read. And again, not a bad idea to take a look at the assignment first and think about, all right, what are some things we're going to need to answer? What's he talking about when he says red lanterns? We'll get to that. What creature is he hunting in the red lanterns, and why might they be found there? And which values of wildlife? We're coming back to those values that we learned about. Pick three that really come out to you as we go through this reading. And then at the end, we'll talk about what my expectations are for that Collins Type 3. So let's jump in and do our reading here. One way to hunt partridge is to make a plan based on logic and probabilities of the terrain to be hunted. This will take you over the ground where the birds ought to be. We should stop there real quick and talk about that term partridge. What he's getting at there is a bird called a ruffed grouse. So let's talk about, let's just take a look at a ruffed grouse. It's maybe our most popular upland game bird here in Maine. And in Maine, we commonly refer to them as partridge as well. And there you go. There's some great images of ruffed grouse. That's the bird that Aldo Leopold is talking about in this book when he calls them partridge. There's another bird he'll talk about in there called the woodcock. And there you go. There you have the bird, the American woodcock as well. It's another upland game bird we have here in Maine that is very common in early fall. It's got that long beak it uses to pull worms out of the dirt. So really cool little ground nesting bird, the woodcock. So let's go back to our reading here. Another way is to wander quite aimlessly from one red lantern to another. This will likely take you where the birds actually are. The lanterns are blackberry leaves, red in the October sun. So what he's talking about with those red lanterns are blackberry bushes who, as their leaves change, they glow bright red in that October sun. And right now, if you take a walk in the Maine woods anywhere with recent disturbance and you find blackberry bushes, you will find those red lanterns. Red lanterns have lighted my way on many a pleasant hunt in many a region, but I think the blackberries must first have learned how to glow in the sand counties of central Wisconsin. Along the little boggy streams of these friendly wastes, called poor by those whose own lights barely flicker, the blackberries burn richly red on every sunny day, from first frost to the last day of the season. Every woodcock and every partridge has his private solarium under these briars. Most hunters, not knowing this, wear themselves out in the briarless scrub, and returning home birdless, leave the rest of us in peace. So what he's getting at there is the woodcock and partridge love to hide in these briar bushes. If you've ever tried to walk through a raspberry patch in the Maine woods, you know that it is not fun, and you better be wearing some thick pants or you're going to get all torn up by those thorns. So there's a lot of security offered by these red lanterns, the blackberries, and that's why the partridge are living there. By us, I mean the birds, the stream, the dog, and myself. The stream is a lazy one. He winds through the alders as if he would rather stay here than reach the river. So would I. Every one of his hairpin hesitations means that much more stream bank where hillside briars adjoin dank beds of frozen ferns and jewel weeds on the boggy bottom. No partridge can long absent himself from such a place, nor can I. Partridge hunting then is a creekside stroll, upwind from one briar patch to another. He's talking about that perfect partridge habitat, that lowland kind of boggy ground filled with blackberry bushes right along the bank of a stream. And he's walking upwind because he's hunting with a bird dog, and he wants that dog pointing into the wind so it can smell the birds up ahead of him. The dog, when he approaches the briars, looks around to make sure I am within gunshot. Reassured, he advances with stealthy caution, his wet nose screening 100 scents for that one scent, the potential presence of which gives life and meaning to the whole landscape. He is the prospector of the air, perpetually searching his strata for olfactory gold. Partridge scent is the gold standard that relates his world to mine. My dog, by the way, thinks I have much to learn about partridges, and being a professional naturalist, I agree. He persists in tutoring me with the calm patience of a professor of logic in the art of drawing deductions from an educated nose. I delight in seeing him deduce a conclusion in the form of a point, from data that are obvious to him, but speculative to my unaided eye. Perhaps he hopes his dull pupil will one day learn to smell. Let's quickly get at what he's talking about there. He's hunting over a dog called an English setter. And that's a pointing dog. So that dog is going to run through those briar bushes. It's looking for that ruffed grouse. They're smelling for it. And when he gets a nose full of grouse scent, that dog is going to freeze and go on what's called on point. Its tail stiffens up. It stands frozen solid. And it points its nose in the direction that smell is coming from, alerting the hunter that there may be a ruffed grouse or a woodcock right there. And pointing dogs are very popular for hunting grouse and woodcock in the Maine woods. So that's kind of what he's getting at. And he's talking about this dog thinks he knows way more about partridge than Aldo Leopold does because he's got the ability to smell them. Leopold, again, can't smell those partridge. He's using his dog to figure out where they are. And they're working together as a team to do that. Like other dull pupils, I know when the professor is right, even though I do not know why. I check my gun and walk in. Like any good professor, the dog never laughs when I miss, which is often. He gives me one look and proceeds up the stream in quest of another grouse. So he's going to walk in there when that dog goes on point and try to flush the grouse into the air and get a shot at it as it flies away, which is much easier said than done in the thick woods where grouse like to live. Following one of these banks, one walks astride two landscapes. The hillside one hunts from, and the bottom the dog hunts in. There's a special charm in treading soft, dry carpets of lycopodium to flush birds out of the bog. And the first test of a partridge dog is his willingness to do the wet work while you parallel him on the dry bank. He's talking about how a good bird dog will run down through all that thick, wet stuff while you walk up on the higher, dry ground, waiting for him to flush the birds up to you. Remember, they're working together as a team, and it takes a lot of training to do that. A special problem arises when the belt of alders widens and the dog disappears from view. Hurry at once to a knoll or point where you stand stock still, straining eye and ear to follow the dog. A sudden scattering of whitethroats may reveal his whereabouts. A whitethroat is a sparrow. Again, you may hear him breaking a twig or splashing in a wet spot or plopping into the creek, but when all sound ceases, be ready for instant action, for he is likely on point. Listen now for the premonitory clucks of a frightened partridge gives just before flushing. Then follows the hurtling bird, or perhaps two of them. Or I have known as many as 6, clucking and flushing one by one, each sailing high for his own destination in the uplands. Whether one passes within gunshot is of course a matter of chance, and you can compute the chance if you have time. 360 degrees divided by 30, or whatever segment of the circle your gun covers. Divide again by 3 or 4, which is your chance of missing, and you have the probability of actual feathers in the hunting coat. The second test of a good partridge dog is whether he reports for orders after such an episode. Sit down and talk it over with him while he pants. Then look for the next red lantern and proceed with the hunt. The October breeze brings my dog many scents other than grouse, each of which may lead to its own peculiar episode. When he points with a certain humorous expression of the ears, I know he has found a bedded rabbit. Once a dead serious point yielded no bird, but still the dog stood frozen. In a tuft of sedge under his very nose was a fat sleeping coon, getting his share of October sun. At least once on each hunt the dog bays a skunk, usually in some denser than ordinary thicket of blackberries. Once the dog pointed in midstream. A whir of wings upriver followed by 3 musical cries told me he had interrupted a wood duck's dinner. Not infrequently he finds a jacksnipe in heavily pastured alders, and lastly he may put out a deer, bedded for the day on a high stream bank flanked by alder bog. Has the deer a poetical weakness for singing waters, or a practical liking for a bed that cannot be approached without making a noise? Judging by the indignant flick of his great white flag, it might be either or both. I love how he questions that there. He's thinking, does this deer just like laying next to a brook because it's beautiful, or does the deer lay there because it's a practical place to lay where you'll never be caught by a predator? Almost anything may happen between one red lantern and another. At sunset on the last day of the grouse season, every blackberry blows out his light. I do not understand how a mere bush can thus be infallibly informed about the Wisconsin statutes, nor have I ever gone back the next day to find out. For the ensuing 11 months, the lanterns glow only in recollection. I sometimes think that the other months were constituted mainly as a fitting interlude between Octobers, and I suspect that dogs and perhaps grouse share the same view. So what he's getting, I love that line there, how he's getting at, I do not understand how a mere bush can thus be infallibly informed about Wisconsin statutes. What he's saying is, basically, as soon as October ends and grouse season is over, all those leaves fall off the red lanterns and they disappear, right? So this time period in October when the red lanterns are out is so fleeting, and it's so special to him that he waits all year for that month of October when he can roam the woods with his bird dog, going from one red lantern to another, chasing ruffed grouse around. And I've had a lot of similar experiences in my days roaming around the woods in October, doing some grouse hunting. So I love reading this story. It makes me feel like I'm in the North Maine woods chasing ruffed grouse around, and it's just a really, really cool story. So to go back to our assignment here, remember we talked in there about what those red lanterns actually are, why the partridge are using them, and based on that reading, I think it's pretty easy to come up with a few different values that Aldo Leopold's exhibiting here for wildlife, right? He's obviously finding beauty and value for food and sport in this, and there's lots of different values that you can identify. I'm looking for 3 of those 6 values that we learned about in class. I'm really anxious to read your Collins Type 3 reflection here this week, and I'm really looking for you to do 3 things, and be sure you do these things, and be sure you do them in complete sentences that flow together as one reflective writing piece. I'm looking for maybe a paragraph or so. I want you to explain to me what comes to mind when you think about October in the Maine outdoors. It doesn't have to be those red lanterns. When you talk about October, Aldo Leopold would talk about red lanterns. What do you think of when you think of October in the Maine outdoors? What comes to mind? Can be anything. Identify one species mentioned in this passage that you have had an encounter with in your life. I'm specifically looking for wildlife here. I've had a lot of kids in the past choose the dog and write about dogs. Remember, that English setter we looked at is not wildlife. That is a domestic creature. I'm looking for you to pick one of the creatures he mentions in this passage. There's a bunch of them. And tell me about an encounter you've had in your life with it. He talks about skunks and raccoons and white-tailed deer, ruffed grouse, woodcock, the white-throat sparrow, wood ducks. We've all got experience with wood ducks at this point. We may not have seen one, but we've learned about them and seen a wood duck box. So share with me an experience you have with one of those wild creatures, or even the red lanterns themselves are wildlife, and you could write about those as well if you've ever walked through some blackberries in the Maine woods. It's no fun. So identify one of those creatures that you have experience with that is wildlife, again, not the dog, and briefly describe the details of your encounter. Tell me about it. What happened? Where did you see that thing, and what was it like? What did it make you feel like? So there you have it. Write me a little paragraph reflection there, and make sure you submit that. And I appreciate you guys tuning in today for a little more reading and reflection from a Sand County Almanac. Looking forward to seeing you guys next time.